Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hello everybody, and welcome to this performance of the first part of the cycle of Heinrich Biber's Rosary or Mystery Sonatas. I'm Gregory Hill, and I'll give you a brief introduction and background before each sonata. The soloist is Loeser, playing 3 baroque violins. The continuo will be played by Rachael Griffiths-Hughes on organ and harpsichord, and Jane Young on baroque cello. Heinrich Ignaz Franz von Biber composed his Rosary sonatas in the 1670s. There are 16 of them, 5 joyful mysteries, 5 sorrowful mysteries, 5 glorious mysteries, and a concluding Passacaglia. Tonight, we'll hear the joyful mysteries. The Rosary is a part of Catholic worship, largely unchanged since the Middle Ages. It is essentially the practice of meditations on the 15 mysteries, 15 events in the lives of the Virgin Mary and her Son, Jesus Christ. For each mystery, the devotee verbalizes the Lord's Prayer, 10 Hail Marys, and the Glory Be, whilst meditating on that mystery, that event in the life of Mary or Jesus. You can keep track of how many Hail Marys you have done on your rosary beads. From the 15th century onwards, images, drawings, and paintings came to be used as aids to this meditation. In the 17th century, Heinrich Biber took meditational assistance a step further with his cycle of the Rosary sonatas, one specifically for each mystery. The joyful mysteries related to the birth of Christ and the first 12 years of his life on earth. The first of the joyful mysteries, the Annunciation in D minor, concerns the visit of the Archangel Gabriel to the Virgin Mary when he informed her that she would give birth to the Son of God. You might hear a conversation between the Archangel and the Virgin in this. You might hear a premonition of the echoes in the empty tomb 33 years later. It's up to you to occupy your mind as you will. There are 3 sections in the Annunciation: Praeludium, Variatio, and Finale. One of the extraordinary aspects of the mystery sonatas is Biber's use of scordatura. The word scordatura comes from the Italian verb scordare, to mistune. Not retune or differently tune, but mistune. Scordatura is where all, some of the strings on an instrument are deliberately mistuned to different notes to create new technical and oral possibilities. All sorts of new multiple stops and chords present themselves, and new brighter, duller, louder, quieter sonorities are available, depending on the relationship of the music's tonality to the particular scordatura being employed. The first of the Rosary sonatas, the Annunciation, which we've just heard, is in normal tuning, G, D, A, E. But the following 14 mysteries are each in a different scordatura or mistuning. This creates a huge stress on the violin and the violinist. The written notes are not the notes you hear. They are the notes you should finger as if the violin was properly tuned. And so what comes out of the mistuned strings is different to what you see and what you thought you played. An intended unison on two strings can look like a jarring discord a tone apart, but sounds as a unison. So rather than the written music showing the shape and the actual notes to be played, it is more of a fingering chart, a tablature. The practice of the Rosary is a ritual. One creates for oneself a physical and mental space to repetitively reflect and contemplate on faith. Biber's Rosary music is all of that for the performer as well. First, you create the unique scordatura for the particular mystery. Then the mind enters the space to decode the meaningless black dots in the terms of the scordatura. The performer takes a leap of faith, and the scordatura turns all those misprinted notes into the right ones, and the spell is created. It is a rather otherworldly experience for both the violinist and the devotee. The second joyful mystery is the Visitation. The Visitation is when the pregnant Virgin Mary visits her cousin Elizabeth, who is also pregnant with John the Baptist. The unborn John is immediately aware of the presence of the Son of God and kicks strongly in his mother's womb. Our first scordatura is one of the gentlest. The two bottom strings have been wound up one tone each. This gives us 2/5 an octave apart, A and E, and A and E. Or 2 octaves, a fifth apart, A and E and E. This scordatura resonates perfectly with the open brightness of the Visitation's A major. Biber's Visitation music is a joyous reflection of the two excited, expectant mothers in 3 movements: sonata, allemande, and presto. The fragile baroque violin with its gut strings really does not react well to all these different scordature. Every new tuning needs time to settle in. So therefore, Anna is playing 3 different violins tonight. 2 of them are her own, and sincere thanks are due to Gregory Squire for the generous loan of the 3rd violin. We're also indebted to Catherine Polglaze, our tireless behind-the-scenes violin tech, whose job it is to keep all those violins perfectly mistuned. Of course, a performance needs a venue, so grateful thanks to the Waikato Cathedral Church of St. Peter for giving us the use of this fabulous performance space. Now we're going to hear the third joyful mystery, the Nativity. It's in B minor, and the violin strings are uncomfortably mistuned to a B minor arpeggio. The G string is wound up a third to B, and the E string slackened off to D, and there's an F sharp and another B in there too. Biber's Nativity is a dark, severe, unsettled affair. There are no shining trumpets or angels heralding the newborn king. This is about a scared, exhausted teenage girl who's been walking all day and gone into labour in a strange, dirty shepherd's hut with only her husband and some shepherds to help her. The prognosis can't have been that great. It's only at the final adagio that there's perhaps some repose and a quiet sense of achievement. The performers this evening have chosen to highlight the loneliness of Mary and Joseph by leaving the keyboard out of the continuo. The Nativity begins with a sonata where you might recognise a passing reference to the folk song used by Johann Sebastian Bach 65 years later in the Quodlibet of his Goldberg variations. The opening sonata is followed by a Courant and Double and the aforementioned adagio. The autograph manuscript of Biber's Mystery Sonatas was presented by a stranger to the Bavarian State Library in about 1890. The sonatas had never been published or disseminated. In the previous 180 years, nobody had heard them or heard of them. The title page is missing, so we don't know what Biber called them, but we know from Biber's enthusiastic accompanying dedication letter to the Archbishop of Salzburg that they were written to the honour of the 15 sacred mysteries. The individual mysteries are not named either, but at the top of each sonata, a space has been neatly left blank and a little round copperplate engraving affixed. Each of the 15 engravings represents a mystery of the Rosary and identifies its sonata with that mystery. When the sonatas were first discovered, they were in fact referred to as the copperplate engraving sonatas for a while. The engravings, being on the written music, are not for any audience, for whom looking at the music would have been pointless because of the scordatura. The engravings are there for the performer to help them fulfill their part of the meditation. So we move on now to the fourth joyful mystery, the presentation in the temple. This mystery celebrates the 40th day of Jesus' life, when his parents presented him at the temple in Jerusalem for the ceremony of the redemption of the firstborn son, and at the same time to complete Mary's postpartum purification. Biber chose a chacona, or chacon, in D minor with 12 variations for his presentation in the temple. Such a repetitive form as the chacon, a dance in triple metre built over a repeated and unchanging 8-bar ground bass, seems almost tailor-made for meditative trance-like worship. The scordatura is 2 A's and 2 D's, giving the violinist 2/4 an octave apart, or 2 octaves a fourth apart. We don't know a lot about Biber's Rosary sonatas. We don't even know when they were written, although we can guess at some time of the mid to late 1670s. We know they were written for Biber's employer, the Archbishop of Salzburg, Maximilian Gandolf von Humberg. Maximilian Gandolf had been educated by Jesuits and was an ardent rosary worshipper. Among his roles was patron of the confraternity, or lay brotherhood, of the Assumption of the Virgin, to which all the students at Salzburg University belonged. Their main religious obligation was the prayer of the Rosary. Heinrich Biber was also Jesuit educated. In fact, his two middle names, Ignaz Franz, which he adopted himself, they're not on his birth certificate, are the names of two of the Jesuit order's founders, St. Ignatius, St. Francis. Biber and his mystery sonatas and Maximilian Gandolf were all three enmeshed in Jesuit doctrine. There's no record of any contemporaneous performance of the mystery sonatas. Where and why, if at all, were they performed? For such sacred subject matter, they are remarkably unholy. Surely all those dance movements were not intended for use in church. Perhaps they were for intimate meditation in the Archbishop's quarters, or for something on a grander scale in the Aula Academica, the great hall used for the devotions of the Confraternity of the Virgin, still standing in Salzburg today and hung with paintings of the mysteries of the Rosary. The fifth and last of the joyful mysteries is the finding in the temple. When Jesus was 12 years old, the family made the Passover pilgrimage to Jerusalem with others. When they left Jerusalem at the end, Mary and Joseph were somehow unaware that Jesus wasn't with them. They eventually realized he was missing and returned to Jerusalem. And after 3 days found him in the temple, locked in earnest and learned discussion with elders. The elders were highly impressed with the boy. When Mary asked her son something like, "Where on earth have you been?" Jesus replied, "How is it that you sought me? Did you not know I must be in my Father's house?" In the finding in the temple, Biber expresses Mary's joy and relief at finding her son in a Praeludium, Alaman, Gigue, and a Saraban and Double. The scordatura for this final A major sonata is a broken A major arpeggio.